brings me to the final section on culture, which is urgency. And for this, I thought I'd make it really fun and wrap up with the most exciting topic ever, hard drives. Who wants to talk about hard drives? Probably none of you. And that's why I picked the best story to end on. So let me tell you about the hard drive market back in 1980. In 1980, hard drives were 14 inches, and the market was controlled by Control Data and IBM. And by 1984, the market changed a little bit, and it got crazy. Instead of 14-inch drives, we had 8-inch drives. And it seems subtle, but the leaders changed. Now it was Shugart and Micropolis. By 1988, it was a totally new market. Now we had 6.25-inch drives. Totally different, right? Well, the main companies didn't stay in control. Now it was Seagate and Miniscribe. So where do you think it's going next? Well, maybe the hard drives will get smaller. And they did. In 1980, there were 3.5-inch drives. And now the market was controlled by Connor and Quantum. Wow. And by 1995, we had 2.25-inch drives. Mind-blowing. So different. And yet the leaders changed. How come the leaders couldn't stay the same over a period of years? How come every 4 years or so, like clockwork, someone got disrupted? Well, it shows us that even small shifts can disrupt a market. It's not always easy to stay in the lead. And chaos? Wow, chaos takes disruption to a whole new level. So if you want to create a sense of urgency in your office, this is the time period, recessions, time periods of change, to spark the need to reinvent. In the 1970s, there was a guy named Pierre Rack, and his job at Royal Dutch Shell was to forecast the price of oil. And it's an easy job. If you look at the charts from 1950 to 1970, it's pretty easy. How much should oil be? I don't know. It was 20 bucks last year. It's 20 bucks now. I guess it'll be 20 bucks next year. And if you just say 20 bucks, you're probably going to keep your job. But he walked in one day and he said, you know, I think the price of oil is going to be 20 bucks, right? That's the safe bet. But I think that maybe, just maybe, there is a chance that the Middle East nations will form a cartel. And if they did, everything would change. And he said, I don't have the insight that they will. I'm just saying if it was me, and I was them, I'd do it. And sure enough, OPEC was formed. The price of oil skyrocketed eventually up to $100. And the only large oil company that had prepared for that scenario was Shell. Sure, they thought the price was going to be $20, but they had another scenario running on what happens if it doesn't. And so instead of being the 7th largest oil company, they emerged as the #1 largest in terms of profitability and the #2 in terms of revenue. And maybe now we'll see that next evolution as we move towards a future that doesn't rely on fossil fuels. So this is a dated example, but I do find it really powerful because it resulted in the beginning of, for many professionals, scenario analysis. And the real takeaway that you're not necessarily preparing for what will happen. You're preparing for the potential of what could be. And if you're looking for examples in your industries or others of disruption, guess what? It's really easy to find. But I like to focus on the learnings from examples like Smith Corona or others who didn't make it, instead of just looking at the little startups that toppled everyone. We hear the word disruption, and so often it seems sexy and innovative, and we want to know more about this word disruption. Show me the most disruptive companies. But actually, there's another side. What does the word really mean? Disruption means blindness. Disruption is about the incumbent companies losing, the cultures that didn't adapt, the cultures that hung on to the status quo. They say half of the Fortune 500 companies won't exist in a meaningful way in a decade, and wow, I'd say with the chaos we're going through now, you might accelerate that time frame. And if you talk about smaller and medium businesses, that might be true in an even shorter time frame. So you can look at a stat like that and see it as a tragic risk, or you can see it as an epic opportunity and realize the world is changing, and now truly is your time to be able to reinvent. But now is the time for action. Tactics to make action happen: create a real fear of disruption. Use the post-COVID-19 chaos to create real urgency for reinvention, and invest in ideas that open your options. Your final workshop questions would be: what external factors pose a threat to your business? And in a simulation, ask your team what would happen if the top 10 startups in your industry were purchased and scaled up quickly by your competitors. That ends our section on creating a culture of innovation. If you want to dive a little bit deeper, we explore some of our tactics in the Innovation Handbook, including some of the techniques that we've used to help companies make innovation and change happen.